Come and buy a happy microwave oven. Don't open your eyes.
Happy. Unhappy.
A few videos ago, we went through a handful of analog horror series that fit more into that classic style, making a lot with so little, the source of all the best horror. There was another contender, however, that was supposed to make it into that video. And if I'm being honest, I have been wanting to get to this series for quite a long time, but it just unfortunately kept getting pushed back. But that, everybody, would be the Happy Child analog horror series. Now, it isn't all that clear if this playlist of analog horrors is actually called Happy Child. It's just that it is the most popular analog horror title here, and there are plenty of similarities throughout each entry that make it highly likely that most, if not all of these tapes, tell a larger story. And there are a ton of entries, let me tell you. Even 2 extras that are more recent additions to the tale. Which means, unfortunately for y'all, this is going to be split into 2 parts. Part 1 will cover tapes 1 through 8, and Part 2 will cover tapes 9 through 19. The entry that introduced me to this series actually was The Best Mom, which is the second most popular video in the playlist. After that, however, I did receive plenty of recommendations from all of you wanting me to cover this series. We have 19 short entries to power through, so be sure to equip yourself with the most sturdiest of protective gear. This may be a multi-day endeavor. As always, if you haven't already, be sure to check out the original series before diving in over here for us to take this journey as a group. Happy Child, Tape 1. Our tape begins like your classic analog horror, in an old PSA style format with simplistic graphics. This PSA is telling us that if we are finding life to be too boring, then perhaps purchasing a happy child is just the thing we need. Already a lot of questions. Sure enough, we see a full-grown adult standing next to this infant. It's said that the happy child is produced by a company, and in reality, it's a simulated companion robot. Are we living in Detroit Become Human? Oddly enough, the company name is censored. It sounds like they don't want to be known. Our next segment then is supposed to tell us how to take care of this happy child we have ordered. Step 1 is just to stay with them. It sounds obvious. Step 2 is to talk to them. Pretty obvious, yeah, you don't want to neglect them. Step 3 is to then play with them. So far, all of these sound pretty easy, yet so many find it so hard. The next bit we get isn't really a step, but more of a glitch in the system, so to speak.
Sure. You need to pay attention to your happy child.
After we are told to pay attention to our happy child, we end up seeing it take an odd transformation. Its limbs become elongated, and we see as it is now quite taller than us, even. Let's just hope they don't mean us any harm. Shit. We end off with another message encouraging us to buy a happy child. After what I just saw, no way. Already, this analog horror has given us plenty of potential clues as to what this background universe looks like. It's evident that we are in a world advanced enough in robotics to create humanoid replacements for children and whatnot. Who knows what or who else has been replaced by these androids? Is this PSA being manipulated by one? If these are machines, then why are they transforming themselves? A lot of questions very early on. Classic analog horror. Happiness Microwave Oven. Tape 2. Our tape starts off very similarly to our first one, a PSA, except this time talking about the Happiness Microwave Oven. Feeling irritable? Stuck being a shitty chef? Then it may be for you. Apparently this microwave can create more fresh and more delicious food. Sounds like magic if you ask me. And then just like Chef Gusteau once said, anyone can cook. It may not be the exact quote, but it's close enough. Our next segment, however, takes us into quite the dark direction.
Housewives can also become chefs with novel ingredients.
Maybe that isn't a baby I'm looking at being chopped up. Perhaps it's a misshapen fruit. Right, guys? Right? It's said that if the microwave is going to make more fresh and delicious food, it's gonna need some ingredients of the same quality. And the last bit of this tape goes off the rails, to say the least. The narrator's speech begins to overlap, and we see that when they say ingredients, they really mean humans. We see someone getting beat with a bat, a lady about to get shot, a man about to shoot himself. It's like The Purge. It's even heavily hinted at that getting ingredients means taking a life, perhaps. Instead of ingredients literally being used for cooking food, it's a way to get people to kill one another. We're left off hearing that this microwave is absolutely amazing, and that we should definitely buy one. but in a very unsettling frame, we see this guy's face hiding within the microwave. This tape definitely had a lot that may narrow down our options on what exactly is going on. First off, the term happy has been used once again. This is making me think this is some dystopian reality where everyone is being brainwashed or forced to maybe always hide behind a smile. It could be that this is also post-robot takeover, and they have this twisted idea of happiness. Who's to say? I wonder also if these people are having their vision manipulated. Maybe the housewife thought she was really chopping vegetables, but in reality, she was chopping up poor Timmy. Children's Knowledge Program. Tape 3. Following a familiar pattern, we open up on an educational program meant for kids. Immediately, we can see this lady is lacking some facial features. How any kid is watching this without screaming is beyond me. The rest of this tape has us looking at a bunch of different animals, and we are being told which one is real and which one isn't. Okay. First we have an owl, and its variant looks like it has half an apple for a face. Next up is a rabbit that ends up gaining multiple eyes and its nose elongated downwards. Poor Squiddy. Our kitten, however, winds up looking like a straight-up biblically accurate angel. Change it back, please. The puppy ends up traveling back in time, and takes on some more prehistoric features. Yet our goldfish is the weirdest one. Its face is replaced with a tomato, and it literally has hands. However, our final animal may not surprise you actually.
Human.
The last message we receive tells us to contact the police if we encounter any of these frightening creatures. The theory is growing here, I believe. I do still think this takes place in a world where androids have already taken over the world, but I think they've been doing weird experiments creating these odd hybrids. Most of the examples were strange, but didn't seem to necessarily have any direct interference from a curious mind. However, that goldfish fits that description perfectly. A goldfish with a tomato for a face? That sounds like a mad scientist. So I wouldn't be surprised if these androids, maybe not all, are attempting to maybe create new forms of life. Maybe they see humans as the same, or maybe they did something to us. Sunshine Kindergarten. Tape 4. Our tape begins, and it's as clear as ever that this is directly for young children, as it's an enrollment video for Sunshine Kindergarten. Already a place I wouldn't want to send my non-existent child. The scene ends up glitching out, and we are met with who I can only imagine is the school nurse, and her face seems to be a little odd. Needless to say, the text at the bottom tells us that the school has a long history, and it's safe and reliable. However, our narrator just says the school is reliable. It's still safe though, right? Right? When trying to explain what some of the outstanding developments are, the narrator and the text get cut off this time. We can expect our child to learn about interesting studies on the daily though, and we can rest assured that the school is totally enclosed. It's clear that the children will also have access to tons of reading material. However, for a quick frame, our honest, lighthearted kids book changes into something a bit more demonic. If this world has been taken over by synthetic robots, why would this be what they're educating with? Next up, the narrator talks to us about how they will be painting, and when we get a look at some of these drawings, well, they also seem a little odd. I wonder if these are supposed to be the kids alongside their teachers, these creepy fake teachers. This kid looks like they have a weapon for defense. Smart kid. We then go into the meal, and according to the enrollment video, the meals are fresh and provide adequate nutrition. However, as expected, things just keep taking strange turns. We end up seeing a picture of dog food, and the last segment tells us that this school will take our child, no matter who or what they are.
Happy. Unhappy.
Wait, come again? We see an image of what is said to be a happy child, and an unhappy one. And these guys certainly don't look like children, and I wouldn't have really been able to discern which one was happy or unhappy if they weren't labeled. The ending of this tape, however, gives us the biggest clue, I believe. We see the text, "Come and enroll in kindergarten," but then red text comes up that says, "For our food." Now this may seem like just an innocent little tagline, and the food is the biggest selling point. However, I think this is supposed to mean something a bit different. I think that this is an android-manipulated ad to try and get humans to unknowingly become their dinner. I don't necessarily believe they are actually eating these children, however. I think in reality it has to do more with their weird experiments. I imagine those weird happy and unhappy children are the result of strange morbid experiments that these androids are attempting to fulfill. But for what purpose? Does it help them advance as a species? A good book. Tape 5. When our tape begins, we are immediately congratulated by the narrator on getting a good book. But now it's time to find a good spot to read, specifically a quiet place. Our narrator suggests the toilet seat, which isn't a bad idea. But then things begin to go in an odd direction. The narrator asks us to read the following content silently, without making any noise. And he says it's because they can't read. The androids? Unfortunately, however, we have to immediately break the reading silently rule. I'm not sure if this is coming from the book, but if it is, it's listed out into numbered segments. The first is that everyone likes watching TV, so we should take good care of ours. Some classic film ends up getting thrown on, with a very brief message that again says don't make any noise. I feel like this is gonna be some subliminal messaging, like that dream segment in Adventure Time. The second bit is that they know you through signal, sound, and perception. And the third is that computers and other machines with signal equipment should be destroyed. This good book we have seems to be a message to us on how to survive this android takeover. When we get to 4, it says that they also can't understand words, so written records are a must. 5 is that if we wish to stay, we will need sleep medicine. But then step 6 gets a little more sinister.
6. Pretending to sleep is a good idea. Don't open your eyes.
Step 7 is to pay attention to any sound, but if we start getting headaches or feeling nauseous, things are about to get rough. 8 is just that they know where you are. 9 is to not let them know that we know that they know where we are. 10 is to arm yourself to protect your family. And finally, step 11 is to be careful, and we can see another look at our long-limbed creatures before we are wished luck and the tape ends. I have really been enjoying this analog horror so far, as it really feels like with each tape, we are getting more and more pieces to this puzzle, and I believe this is a very important fit. Remember back in the first tape, when the happy child turned into that long-limbed creature? That very same long-limbed creature that we were told are dangerous? I think maybe these androids devised a long-term plan. Perhaps they sent out these happy children androids and all these happy yada yada products to unsuspecting people who were down to purchasing tech from the new age. However, over time, these happy children were meant to hatch and transform into something more sinister down the line. Those long-limbed dangerous androids. Sounds like this may be how they took over the world. And this good book we found was the key we needed to understand some good weaknesses. They can't read. That's literally perfect. Written media will become integral to getting the upper hand. Let's just hope they don't manage to self-solve that one fatal error. Chimera Record 1. Tape 6. The first thing we are met with in this tape is a Mobius strip logo with the label Chimera Call. We are then shown a brain, a heart, and a liquid droplet. And down at the bottom, it says this is the highest work of synthetic life. Oh no. This may change a lot of what we know about the androids. Our screen ends up glitching out, and the Amber Alert siren can be heard blaring in the back. However, we flash between images of different animals, with Chimera in the dead center. We are then shown a statue of Maria, and it says Maria bless all beings. If we get into more religious subtext, I'm gonna have to call Mr. Minus. 2 images of the same man are put on screen side by side, and once again we read that this is the highest work of synthetic life. And sure enough, the 2 look pretty similar, but I am never going to go near that guy on the right. Something is just obviously off. However, before we get to our next segment, a brief frame shows us 2 children next to each other, and it appears to be more of a botched synthetic operation. The fact that these aren't just mechanical androids, but they're human and android synths, makes this whole situation a lot worse. Why in the world would humanity decide to choose green? I understand the concept of wanting to become more entwined with technology in our day-to-day life. Stuff like the Neuralink and VR are prime examples, but at some point it gets way too far, and our humanity will come into question. The next segment we end up getting is video footage of what I believe is a synthetic being tested publicly, and it looks just about as uncanny as you would expect.
Walked up to the main road up near my office, with the commander's office. I was on the commander's staff. Lieutenant Colonel Charles.
I surely hope they aren't thinking of making this synthetic a cop, unless he is pretending to be human, and we were already doomed by this point. The next bit we get has us looking at some eyewitness information on an event we aren't so sure of yet, but images have been provided. The first image we see is of this red-lit neighborhood, and what I can only call Siren Head looming tall in the center. The photo is captured in California on 2003. Our next two images come from Florida, and the first looks like a familiar figure, except a bit smaller. But our next picture is of this house, and it looks like one of these things has gotten onto the roof. The next bit has us listening to quite the disturbing 911 call, so viewer discretion if you aren't up for it right now.
Any emergency? Oh, are you getting please. Okay, we're gonna be there. We're taking it.
This sounds like this was the first human attack. The attacker, according to eyewitnesses, was similar to a synthetic creature, but with a huge body. Luckily, there were no casualties. The next incident, however, the attacker is referred to as the Chimera creature. I imagine the Chimera and synthetic creatures are the same thing. Yet this time, the audio of this creature was captured for the first time.
One, where's your emergency?
This event left someone seriously injured, but luckily again, no one died. Ave Maria begins to take over the audio, and the legend herself comes into center frame. And once again, the text reads, "Maria bless all beings," before the tape ends. This tape revealed a whole lot about the androids we are dealing with. Them being human/animal/machine chimeras makes them a whole lot more threatening, and makes everything before make a lot more sense. That means the kindergarten may have been just a school for those happy children, or that they wanted human children to create even more synthetics. As of this moment, I believe that this tape is the earliest in the timeline, the introduction to these synthetics being introduced into our daily lives. Then these androids very quickly begin to take over the human population, and begin to manipulate the TVs and electronics to try and convince and possibly even brainwash people to turn themselves over to be transformed. This could in fact be crazy talk, but we gotta keep moving to find out. Energy Biscuit, Tape 7. The first thing our narrator asks us in this tape is if we are still worried about buying cookies. What happened to the cookie supply that would make me worried? Needless to say, this proposed energy biscuit is the solution. They are made with high quality milk, healthy eggs, and quality chocolate. This sounds pretty good if you ask me. Would you make that deal?
I'd make that deal.
I don't blame you. Damn good deal.
As the product ad goes further, we see as the supposed humans are once again lacking regular faces. Yet once we are told the energy biscuit can make a good gift, Our Lady has a goat head. Definitely seems they didn't hold back on the wackiness aspect of the experiments they were doing. We then learn that these energy biscuits can actually be delivered to us, but we quickly cut out to an emergency warning to finish off our tape. It looks like a report on one of the happy children, said to develop distorted facial features after 2 weeks of eating. Uh-oh. Then the next says that after 5 weeks of the eating cycle, the test body grew large and distorted, and now can attack. We even get more images of more distorted looking happy children before our tape ends. So from the sound of it, the energy biscuits were more so designed as food for the happy fake children. However, things went awry when the after effects were not as expected. However, I imagine the synthetics were fond of this idea of getting these dangerous improvements, so they likely began to reproduce their own, and try to sell it out to more of their kind. Who knows though? These biscuits could also be a way to get humans to lure themselves into becoming synthetics. The Back of the Moon, Tape 8. This is our longest tape yet, and may be our most informative. We begin reading off of a report from 1995. Dear Annie, you must not know what a spectacular scene it is. Although it is dark, there will be a blue planet hanging in the sky at any moment. I'm alright. Everything here is alright. I think as long as the work is over, we will get together. Wish peace. What we then see next appears to be a very blurry video of the moon, before we end up switching to a different angle, and this time we are on the moon, looking straight at the Earth. Our next bit ends up cutting to more of a classic PSA-styled segment. Titled The Back of the Moon, we learn that a professional aviation team was sent to the back of the moon. Perhaps this series is connected to Transformers. We learn that unknown space was observed, but we then cut out and see a photo of this astronaut, except his face is all blacked out. We get a quick video of 2 astronauts on the moon before we cut to another report like the one we read in the beginning. My dear, our work has been a great success. all these miracles, we will succeed soon. Everything is fine with me. Love you. Returning to footage from the moon, we zoom in closely to what looks to be a boxed structure. Except now we are shown images of 2 astronauts with blurred faces. And when we return to the moon footage, the obscure structure is now censored as well. The reports being sent by the astronauts are beginning to get less and less hopeful. This was supposed to be the time when I returned to my hometown. I'm sorry, Annie. We received a new mission, the back of the moon. You know, I hope you will forgive me. We will arrive soon. Is this report talking about a new mission involving the back of the moon, or is it his first time hearing of it? We end up getting another look at our astronaut, and his face is now completely missing, but for one single frame, we see his features return. Our footage then takes us back down to Earth, and whoever is filming is looking up at the moon. Maybe this is Annie, looking up at her dear astronaut. However, our next report ends up coming in. Dear, although we don't know when it is, we saw the blank, just a few hundred meters away, and we will soon be close to success. We then get an uncensored look at this box. Who knows what this could be? We see as our image capture software tries to get a better focus on it, but we end up cutting to our next report. We will arrive soon. It is a cave with no end in sight. God, we are close to the truth. 1995, 1996, 1997. Soon, we have succeeded. I will continue to persevere and wait for me. We haven't received any signal for a long time. There is nothing here. It's dark. I can't even see its edge. Is it stone or time? Are you trapped here? No. No. I miss you. We see as the Earth begins to loom over the moon, and then a graphic of this person entering what looks to be a portal. Our report then continues. I need more time. I can't turn back. I just have to move forward. Annie, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The blank, what the fuck? The blank, I got to the blank. From this point on, our reports begin to get a bit more crazy sounding. Today is year, beautiful blue, beautiful Annie. I'm the last one to arrive. Difficulties? I'm here. Front, deep, like, I want. Finally, I arrived. 1995, 96, 97. No, no, no. Help. We then see another blurry sight of the moon, and we then cut out to see our astronaut enter the portal, crying out for help, like he was forced inside. We then get to read the last report. Dear, do you know what is the back of the moon? I saw my hometown. I'm home. We then are met with 4 different images of astronauts, with the message below reading, we deeply deplore. While this tape was much longer and had much more of a clear story to it, it almost seems disconnected in a way. However, it did take place a bit before everything else, so who even knows how this whole synthetic idea truly started? Now, this theory I've been cooking may just be too outlandish, but bear with me, because this tape made me think this could be a bigger reveal than we initially thought. What if this tape revealed we haven't been following the world we thought we were in this tape? My guess is that the world this tape takes place in is a different reality than our own. Perhaps this universe has people that operate a bit strangely. Maybe they are already somewhat synthetic, but they discovered a portal at the back of the moon that is located at the bottom of a staircase, or perhaps meant to look like a staircase. However, once these 4 astronauts stepped through, they were brought to our world. Maybe the travel messed up their minds and turned them crazy. Maybe they started this whole synthetic takeover. It's possible, but is it likely? It's possible that we didn't move worlds at all, and synthetics came from the portal, and our astronauts are lost forever. There's plenty of possibilities that were opened up just because of this tape alone, and I'm scared that as the series goes on, the ambiguity is going to keep getting crazier. However, tapes 9 to 19 will have to be saved for a part 2, as this is quite the lengthy series. Not even in literal length, but in lore density. I can't imagine what the final theory is even going to look like. As of this moment, I still believe our world has been taken over by synthetics, and their plan is to slowly replace us humans over time, with more chimeras like them. It's even possible that synthetics and chimeras are 2 different beings. Maybe synthetics were the first batch, but then synths began to create us humans into chimeras. Who's to say? But this just goes to show how many theories and questions were able to come from this series alone, and I for one can't wait to get into the second half. Even though we aren't finished yet, I can still recommend you check out Happy Child for yourself. Maybe you can get ahead of me in the theory game, and you can compare it to whatever nonsense I come up with. But on that note, be sure to keep leaving me recommendations down below, whether it be in the YouTube comments or the community Discord, where I'm always lurking for potential synthetics among us. Be sure to be on the lookout for part 2 coming soon, however. But if you'll excuse me, I've been thinking of getting some synthetic enhancements of my own.